Great. Should we begin?
Yeah.
Okay. So a very good afternoon to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this special webinar as we celebrate India's second Protein Day today. I am Lynn from the Right to Protein team, and I'd like to welcome all the parents, teachers, and especially the students for participating in this educational webinar. Joining us today as the host is eminent celebrity nutritionist Pooja Makhija, who is on a journey to educate the world about food and help people understand the power of nutrition. Pooja, thank you so much for giving us your time this afternoon.
It's my pleasure.
Before we begin, I'd like to give all our attendees a quick background on the Right to Protein initiative. Right to Protein was launched as a movement in 2019 after we learned about how a major part of the population of India is protein deficient. इंडिया में प्रोटीन की कमी को इम्पोर्टेंस नहीं दिया जाता है, and through this initiative, we aim to educate citizens about the importance of adequate protein consumption for better nutrition, health, and well-being. Right to Protein started Protein Day in India last year, and we're so happy to be able to celebrate with all of you this time around. We're really glad to be partnering with Teach for India and with you, Pooja, to make this happen. Now, before we begin and Pooja takes over, I'd like to let all of you know that we will be answering your questions right at the end of the session. So feel free to drop a note through the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. आप Q&A section में question डाल सकते हैं जो हम session के बाद answer करेंगे. So we also have a very special announcement that will be made right at the end. So stick around. Over to you, Pooja.
Well, firstly, thank you very much, Right to Protein, for helping me move ahead in my passion of educating India about the importance of nutrition. Of course, protein being a very, very important and vital pillar of adequate nutrition. And as the IDA study has clearly proven that protein deficiency is something that vastly affects our nation. 84% of Indians are not getting their adequate protein intake. Now, this is not something that this has to shock and startle us, okay? Because 84% of our country, if they are not getting adequate amount of protein, I would say we are reducing the potential of our country by 84%. Making sure that we are having adequate protein is just going to make sure that we as a nation will thrive, whether it is because of mental attitude or physical well-being or emotional quotient of success and happiness. So protein is extremely crucial, and thank you for making me part of your vision in terms of spreading the word about spreading the importance of protein. And to all that are present here, students and everyone else, a very, very warm welcome to a session which is going to be extremely invigorating, because proteins are invigorating, and I'm going to teach you everything about proteins, what it is, why it is, how it is, and what happens when you do too much, what happens when you do too little, how do you make it enough, how do you go about it. So we're talking about all things proteins, vegans, vegetarians, non-vegetarians, all sources will be discussed. So I hope you have your little writing pads and paper and pen ready, because we have lots of tips to give away. And I really hope that each and every one of you take back from this session the value and the importance of correct nutrition at the correct age to be able to live the correct life that we want to live. Remember, we all are going to be able to achieve what we want, provided we give the body the tool of being able to work with that. So your food is your source of information of how you're going to be able to achieve what you want, whether it is academic success, athletic success, whether it is the right attitude to success. Everything depends on nutrition. And like I said, the most vital pillar in nutrition is protein. It is one of the 3 macronutrients that we have to consume on a daily basis. They are called macronutrients because your body requires them in a larger quantity as compared to micronutrients. The 3 macronutrients are carbs, proteins, fats. And the micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. These, as I call them, are the 5 fingers of nutrition. Learn how to pack a fist in each meal, and that's the fist you will use in terms of being powerful enough to evade diseases, to evade viruses, to achieve success in whichever field you want, because your body will get what the body wants. Once the body gets what it wants, it automatically gives you what you want, whether that is good hair, good skin, good immunity, good energy, good stamina, no diabetes, no blood pressure, no cardiovascular diseases, no cancers, faster speed while you're working out or running a race. Everything can be achieved if and when the body gets what the body wants. So let's come down to the most vital pillar of nutrition, which is your protein. Now, proteins are basically called, proteins are made up of, they are called the building blocks of life, because you have millions of cells in your body, and each of these cells is made out of protein. So we require protein first from the beginning, conception, when the baby is made and conceived as an embryo. It starts from there that we require higher protein to be able to conceive a baby. Then the 9 months in the womb requires protein. Then when the child is born into this world, he requires protein to grow up. So protein is required from conception to the last day of our lives. So we require protein, and these protein needs keep varying. And we'll talk about that as we move ahead, of how these protein needs keep varying. So proteins are the building blocks of life. So literally, just like you build a baby with an embryo, that's how little protein is. So that embryo is all protein, and then that protein becomes into a baby and a human being. That is you. So protein is you. So they're called the building blocks of life. Proteins are made up of amino acids, which is what builds those blocks. So these are molecules that are all connected together. It's literally like wearing a beaded necklace. Those are the amino acids. There are essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. So the pool has about 9 essential amino acids and 13 non-essential amino acids. Now, non-essential amino acids are called non-essential, not because we don't need them. We definitely do. But our body knows how to make them. See, that's the super intelligence of this human body. The body knows how to make 13 out of these amino acids. So that's why it's called non-essential, means I don't have to get it from my diet. 9 are called essential because my body doesn't know how to make them. I have to furnish them through the diet that I'm eating. That's why they're called essential. All of them are essential, but the ones that we need to ensure we are giving the body are called the 9 essential amino acids. Any protein intake which has all the 9 essential amino acids is called a complete protein. And those which have 1 amino acid or more missing are called incomplete proteins. So most animal protein are complete proteins. Plant proteins do have 1 or 2 essential amino acids missing, but don't be saddened by that news. Our body is very, very intelligent, and our nutrition is even more intelligent. We can beautifully pack a complete protein even on a vegetarian or a vegan diet. So don't fret there. We will teach you about protein pooling as we will come along. But what I wanted to highlight from you is that these essential amino acids need to be furnished with the diet, which is why we are having today's session, because protein is very important as a very important pillar for consumption in our day. Now, back in the West, I'm sorry, my eyes are a little dry, which is why they're I'm kind of itching them. I'm sorry about that. But so back in the West, their problem is that they overconsume protein. Okay. Their problems start with what are the complications of excess protein consumption, whereas we are now battling malnutrition with protein, is because we are not giving protein that much importance in every meal. That is why we are working towards making this a better session, so that all you students who are attending this session and everyone else can take back these points and spread the word about the importance of protein. So we've understood the essential amino acids, proteins and their functions of protein. Okay, the first function of protein is called as so the first function is for growth, wear and tear, and repair. So like I said, from a little embryo we become into this big human being, and all of this is done by our protein. So growth is very crucially embedded in your protein intake. And as we are growing, once we are adults, we are not growing physically, but we are still requiring protein for wear and tear and repair. But while you're children, of course, we are growing in height, we're growing in size, our brains are growing, our organs are growing. At such stages, protein is very, very crucial for growth. The minute there is malnutrition or protein malabsorption or protein deficiency, as it is called, it directly influences growth and stunts your growth. So all growing children have to have a very strong focus on good quality protein that they are consuming on a daily basis, so that they can get the best out of their physical as well as mental growth. Which I said, protein is important at all stages. So when you're growing, you require it for growth. Once you reach adult stages, you still require it for wear and tear. Our skin replaces every few days. The liver cells replace every few days. Our heart organ cells replace every few days. Our bones replace every few years. So literally, our body goes through wear and tear and repair. And at this stage, if you're not going to have enough protein, automatically the regeneration or repair of bad cells and replacement with good cells, or phagocytosis as it is known, does not happen when protein levels are not adequate. So not only do we require it while we are growing, but we also require it while we are adults, because we are constantly replacing cells and making new cells. This human body is magnificent. That's how it stays so healthy, it stays so fit. That's because the regeneration process is happening. People who are not getting adequate amount of protein is where the regeneration does not occur. When regeneration or replacement with new cells does not occur, that's when diseases occur. That is why if we want to eliminate diseases, we have to ensure good protein intake. So protein is a very vital tool at all stages of our lives. From birth till the day we die, we require extremely good quality of protein, which is why we're learning its importance today. So that was about the functions of protein. We've spoken about complete and incomplete protein. We were talking about vegetarians and how they will manage. So that's how beautifully nature and God has made this human body and food, is that each of them complement each other. For example, the pulses have 8 essential amino acids, and grains have 8 essential amino acids. So pulses are your dals, legumes, right? And grains are your chawal, roti, poha, idli, right? So those are your grains or your carbs. Now, always note, when we eat, we always mix the carbs with our proteins. For example, we will have chawal with dal, or we will have idli with sambar. So when you complement each other, this has 8 essential, this has the other 8 essential. So the missing one in this is replaced by this, and the missing one in this is replaced by this. So this is what is called as protein pooling. Now, protein pooling, the intelligent part of the human body again is that you don't have to make sure that you have to eat the idli with the sambar. So even if I ate idli for breakfast and I ate sambar in the night for dinner, my body creates what is known as a protein basket. And as these proteins keep dropping into the basket, all the essential amino acids are pooling in. This is called pooling of amino acids. So, for example, if the idli gave me 8 and I got the 9th one from the sambar a little later, automatically my body will get the 9 essential amino acids I require. Right? So although we may not get complete protein, our body still knows how to make the protein, so as long as we are putting in adequate sources all throughout the day, right? So that is what is important when we talk about consumption of protein, complete and incomplete protein, and how we require protein across all ages and all stages to be able to make sure that we are getting adequate growth, development, and wear and tear and repair. See, your body heals. For example, if I get a cut, it heals itself in a couple of days. How does this heal? It is because the proteins will come and repair that area, replace the skin, replace the dead cells, and repair your body. That's the magic, but it requires the ingredients to do the magic, and the ingredients will come from the protein you're taking in through your diet. That brings us to the protein paradox study, which was a very interesting study done, and something which is really needed in our country to find out why is it that we are not being able to maximize our potential in terms of our growth, as well as in terms of the health of our nation, right? The health of our nation depends upon the food that it's eating, and if a vital pillar like protein is missing, it automatically ruins the health of the country. So we came across the protein paradox study, and I'm sure all of you guys have heard about it and read about it and know about it. I just want to highlight a couple of things that saddened me, or rather bothered me, was so there is a difference in the protein paucity. Okay, so the knowledge is not there, which is why we're doing sessions like these, so that we can impart the knowledge of why proteins are crucial. What really bothered me was the protein the psyche of the mothers who thought that proteins are only required for bodybuilders, for example, or proteins are very expensive to get, or proteins make you gain weight. Not at all. Proteins are the best way to make sure that you don't gain weight. So having these myths and these mindsets which are wrong about protein is what we need to clarify, we need to clear, and we need to spread the word. Because if we are not going to be taking in enough nutrition only because of misinformation that has been given to us, that's where we are falling back to get to our maximum potential, whether it is physically or mentally. I know I keep repeating this, but really, guys, you are what you eat. And if you eat right, you can live right. You can achieve every dream you have wished for. You can make it happen. I don't believe in the terminology, I wish it happens. No, we don't have to wish things, darling. We have to make things happen. And to make things happen, you have to have the right nutrition. Remember, every bite you put into your body, every single bite is information. Information towards good health, good hair, good skin, good immunity, good stamina, good energy, good memory, good bones, good heart, good liver, good kidneys, or it is information towards a bad, unhealthy you. Gas, constipation, hair fall, weakness, weak bones, fractures, osteoporosis, diabetes, cancers. Food is the reason that makes your health, or food can be the reason that breaks your health. If we just understand this as an important pillar to life, we will automatically be able to do more justice to the food that we're eating. Our Indian thali, to begin with, was one of the most balanced, beautiful art of nutrition. We had carbs as roti or rice. We had proteins as dals or legumes or sprouts or pulses. Of course, proteins are also found in some vegetables, a little bit more in some than the others. For example, broccoli, for example, peas, for example, beans. They have a little bit more protein as compared to the other dark green leafy veggies, for example. So the Indian thali was a nice, beautiful mix of this all, until we decided that we don't want to be boring and do only what our forefathers have done. And we tried to ape the West and went on convenience of packaged foods and ready to eat and more foods that please our tongue, but not our body. So if we just go back to our roots, we just go back to how beautifully and balanced our forefathers ate, we can eliminate disease and we can bring the balance back in the diet, because our original diet always was a happy mix between carbs and proteins. So that's one thing. There are so many myths that come across with protein. I was really amazed when I heard that people fear proteins only because they think it makes them gain weight. Proteins are the best way so that your body can efficiently use its source of fuel, build muscle, for example. Proteins make your body work harder. Okay, so per gram carbs versus per gram proteins, your body has to work harder when it is digesting the protein. So it keeps you full longer and it makes your metabolic rate faster. Remember, the higher your metabolic rate is, the more weight you will burn. The lower your metabolic rate is, the more weight you will store. So proteins are the most effective way to get into weight loss. Of course, there should be a fair mix of carbs and proteins. We're not saying focus so much on proteins and not or neglect the other macronutrients such as carbs or fats. They are all to be had in the fist, like I explained to you: carbs, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals. Pack a fist in each meal, and that's the excellent way to eat it. Sources of protein, chalo, let's run through those, because those are some things that we get very worked up or confused about. The first on the list is pulses, dals, legumes. Okay, so your dals or whole grains, whether it's moong dal or akha moong or tur dal, masoor dal, these are all pulses, and legumes are one of a very intelligent way to pack in nutrition. It's easy for us to incorporate dals into our meals. So dals are definitely one source. You can sprout them for better bioavailability of the protein, as well as bioavailability of nutrients that are there in the dal. So you can sprout the dal, or you can have the dal. We have milk and milk products as another source of proteins. We have nuts as a great source of protein. It gives you good fat and good quality protein, so that you can incorporate that on a day-to-day basis. We have soya bean and soya bean products, for example, soy or tofu or temph, or even mock meats are made out of soya. Soya has good quality proteins, so it can be used as a source very easily into your day-to-day diets, or the products can be used into your day-to-day diets to incorporate soya bean and good quality protein into your pool. We have sprouted grains as a very excellent way. So what I recommend to a lot of people who find it very difficult to have dal at every meal is to take the dal, sprout it, dehydrate it, and make a powder out of it. So if you find a meal in which there is no protein, you can just use 2 spoons of that powder, sprinkle it on the sabzi, or mix it in the atta while you're kneading the dough of the roti, and you can use that as a protein source. So you just sprout the grain, and after you sprouted the grain, you dry it and make a whole protein powder at home itself. Sattu is that example. Sattu is a great example, which is basically chana dal that you mix in yogurt and have. It's an excellent way to boost up your protein intake. It's very good in the summers to keep your body calm and cool. So sattu could be an excellent way to include protein into your diet. We spoke about certain vegetables being a good source. For example, your beans as well as peas, broccoli, these are great sources of protein. So basically, when we are doing a good pooling, and when we are eating dals with sabzis and rotis, we are getting our protein sources even if we are on a vegetarian diet. Of course, the non-vegetarian or animal sources of protein are egg whites, your chicken, fish, red meat as well. They're all sources of protein. And playing around with your protein source is an excellent way to make sure that your body gets what the body wants in terms of protein quality. We've mentioned all the sources. When we're talking about affordable proteins, dals and pulses are definitely affordable. But for example, even nuts, I'm not talking about the very expensive nuts, but if you even want to talk about peanuts for that matter, peanuts will give you easily 25 grams for every 100 grams. And peanuts are something which is very easily available. So chana singh as a snack or as a nibbler to eat while you are traveling or commuting or are in school and there's a short break and you need a kickstart of good quality protein, a handful of chana singh is a great way to get your protein intake. Of course, almonds and walnuts are also great sources, but if you're talking about affordable sources, I think peanuts can really mix the match here. Hemp seeds are also very good in quality in terms of protein. Hemp seeds can be even powdered into a hemp flour to be used as to make attas and use them. Amaranth, for that matter, or rajgira is again a great source of protein. These are called pseudo cereals, okay, like quinoa and amaranth. They are usually cereals, but they are used more as seeds because they have better quality protein. And these have complete protein. Okay, so I told you have to have 9 essential amino acids. Amaranth and quinoa are complete proteins. People get confused and call them protein sources. They're not actually protein sources. They are more grain sources, but they can also be used as a protein because they have the 9 essential amino acids. The quality of the protein in them is much better. So these can be affordable sources where, while quinoa is expensive, the Indian counterpart of amaranth or rajgira is actually even richer. The iron content is even better than quinoa. It is 1/10 the price. Protein quality is in fact higher in amaranth than in quinoa. So amaranth or rajgira, rotis and atta can easily be used to jump up your protein quotient. So those were the protein sources that we spoke about. All of them have been mentioned. I hope you guys have made a nice note about them all. They're easy to get, easy to access. The key here being is that we have to make sure we are packing a protein in at least all three main meals. See, that's where we go wrong. When the study was done, 93% of them were unaware of what is their requirement of protein, and those who were aware of their requirement of protein were not aware of the sources of the protein, that how they can pool it. They thought just by eating your regular rotis you will still get adequate amount of protein. So that was a misconception that the study busted about mother's knowledge. What we have to do here is we have to not make people think that if you have protein once a day it's good enough. No, your protein requirements are much higher than that. So if you really want to be able to meet your protein need, you have to have protein in all three main meals: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. At each meal, pack a fist. Let me give you a very easy example of packing a fist for 2 breakfast ideas and 2 lunch or dinner ideas. For example, if we are going to have idli, sambar, coconut chutney, okay, so that is carbs, protein, fat, and there are some vegetables present in the sambar, so automatically it's a fist, right? If we had, for example, bread with eggs and some vegetables in the egg, again it was a fist. Another vegetarian source would be poha with some sprouts in it and some vegetables in it, so you packed a fist, so automatically you made it a complete breakfast. Most people who will have poha for breakfast forget to put the sprouts in the breakfast. Then automatically it becomes an incomplete meal, because then you are not packing a fist. So if you put a handful of moong sprouts in it, it becomes more delicious and tasty and wholesome and filling, and it becomes a perfect fist. So those were examples of breakfast ideas. If I'm going to give you lunch dinner ideas: roti, dal, sabzi. Of course, there's some amount of oil or ghee or fat to make the meal. So again, it's a fist. You had dal, chawal with sabzi. Again, you packed a fist. You did. You don't only have to do dal, roti, sabzi. For example, you made a burrito, okay, or you made a burger. Even that can be made into a healthy meal. If the burger bread is called as carbs, you put either a sprouted dal tikki, or you put a chicken patty, or you put some boiled eggs in it, you put some vegetables, you can make a burger a perfect meal. The idea here being we have to make sure that all three meals have a good quality of protein in them. Okay. Some of the ingredients that we can use, of course, like I said, if you have made that sprouts powder and kept, it just becomes very easy. Today in the market is also available protein powders, which are basically extracts of protein from peas, mutton, or brown rice, which automatically becomes a plant-based source to enrich your protein intake in a more wholesome manner in case your requirement is higher. So on an average, we require about a gram of protein per kg per day. Of course, if you are on a higher athletic training or weight training, or you have higher growth needs, it can go between 1.2 to even 1.5 grams per kg body weight. So proteins are extremely crucial, and getting these protein sources don't have to be hardcore maths where you require a nutritionist. Simple logic of making sure that when you look at your plate, about 1/3 of the plate should have good quality protein in it. 1/3 of it will have your carbs in it. Your vegetables will occupy the others. It's a very simple math. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't require nutritionists to do it. All you require is the knowledge that it should be there in all three meals. Now, not everyone makes a conscious effort to put it in three meals. What we tend to do is we have it once a day and we think that much protein is enough. But that's the mistake as Indians we do, which is why 84% of us are not meeting their protein requirements. So make sure you're having proteins in all three major meals. It's extremely important. Also, there's a very strong correlation between protein and hunger. So protein stimulates the production of a hormone called leptin. Leptin is a hormone that tells your body it is full and it is not hungry. The minute the protein goes down, the leptin goes down, your hunger increases, and therefore you eat more food and you are more likely to gain more weight. So protein is one of the best ways to make sure you stimulate the protein to reduce the hunger, to reduce the weight. So it's the smart way to do, even if you're trying to lose weight. Also remember, protein is very, very crucially related to sugar cravings. Now, how many of us crave sugar immediately after a meal? We ate our whole dal, roti, sabzi. उसके बाद थोड़ा सा गुड़, थोड़ा सा लड्डू, एक dark chocolate तो is a must. Now, for many, it's a habit. I'm not talking about a habit. Habits we need to break. But whenever your body is physiologically deficit in protein, you manifest it as sugar cravings. So every time you're reaching out for a chocolate, your body is actually asking you for more protein. But because you don't know the difference between that demand, you're eating more sugar. So all those of you who crave a lot of sugar, I wish I could tell you, put your hands up, but I'm sure everyone in the audience would do that. All those of you who say, I have a sweet tooth, I am a foodie, I love my sugar, I can't do without sugar. All you all need to do is to focus on your protein intake well, and then see you will become in charge, or you will become the boss, not the sugar. Because remember, if you're going to make sugar the boss of your life, then people like me will boss over you for the rest of your life. So if you don't want that, darling, make sure your proteins are your best friends so that you can control every craving. Proteins are there so that you will eat the right food, so that you will not crave the wrong food. Okay. Sorry, we after this also need to speak about combinations of nutrition and ingredient combinations. Of course, we've spoken about that. What else I would like to highlight about protein is people think that by eating more protein, they are going to be making more muscle. Okay, now that's a misconception that I want to bust here. Eating protein is not equal to building muscle. When you want to build muscle, you have to actually go to the gym, work out, and then eat the protein to build the muscle. We are eating proteins to make you stronger. We are eating proteins to improve your immunity. And I think in today's time and age, immunity is the key word that is the need of the hour. We all want to have an invisible bubble around us so that every virus is warded off. But if you're protein malnourished, your immunity drops, because your fighting cells or your soldiers in the body are made up of protein. But if you don't have enough protein, you don't have an army of soldiers to attack when the enemy attacks you. So if you want to have your immunity in your hands, if you want to be a strong fort where no virus can touch you and no disease can touch you, then proteins are very, very crucial, because they are your fighting soldiers. That is what your WBCs and your T cells and your B cells are made up of. So if you don't have adequate protein, then your WBCs will not be able to fight the disease, and that's when infections attack us. Infections like COVID-19, infections like the common cough or cold and flu, infections that we get, gastrointestinal infections, infections with a wound. There are so many types of infections that bother us. But if your protein intake is good, always remember, you will stay the boss of your life. The diseases will not be able to come because the proteins will box it and ward it off. I hope that in itself is an awakening or a reason for making sure that our protein intake is adequate. It has sadly taken us a pandemic to realize the importance of nutrition. And when we say nutrition and proteins are literally synonymous to good health. So if you are not going to have adequate protein, people are just popping in vitamin C's thinking that will protect them from coronavirus. But vitamin C cannot do anything if there are no soldiers, and there will be no soldiers if there's no protein. So please ensure, everyone attending the seminar, please ensure that everyone in your family is eating adequate quality of protein. Only then will they be able to keep their immunity up. Only then will their body be able to even use the vaccine. See, remember, the vaccine is not the solution to the problem. The vaccine, once injected into the body, again will stimulate the production of antibodies. Antibodies are made up of protein. So if you do not have adequate amount of protein, even the vaccine cannot protect you. So if you want to stay protected, you have to make sure the protein intake of your diet in breakfast, lunch, and dinner is well taken care of. And on that note, I think I should stop the talking, and you guys should ask me more questions about what bothers you. Feel free, guys. If someone can lead me into the queries and questions that all these participants are enthusiastically typing in, let me answer their queries so that I can help you better.
Yeah, great, Pooja. So I'll take you through some of the questions because I can see them. Just give me a second. Okay. So we have the first question. I think we'll start with some of the questions that came in just before the session.
Okay.
How much protein must one consume daily to maintain their health? What is the quantity? हमें कितना protein खाना चाहिए?
So I think I did answer this when I said at least a gram of protein per kg body weight. So if my body weight is 50 kilos, I have to have at least 50 grams of protein. And likewise, if yours is 70 kilos, you need to have at least 70 grams of protein. Again, calculating this protein is very, very simple. If you have a smartphone, and now everyone has, there are protein calculators available very easily on Google. If you put in 1 bowl of dal, it will easily tell you that you're going to be getting 20 grams from 100 grams of uncooked dal. So it's very easy to be able to get that nutritional knowledge. And once you have sat down and done this equation and said, okay, in a day, if I have 2 bowls of dal, I have a handful of nuts, I have 1 glass of sattu, I have, if you are non-vegetarian, you have 2 boiled eggs, my protein requirement is done. Then you decide what you're going to eat when. So for example, I'll eat the boiled eggs for breakfast, I'll eat the dal for lunch, I'll eat the dal for dinner, I'll have a handful of nuts in between my breakfast and lunch, or in between my lunch and dinner, and your protein need is taken care of, finished. So a protein needs sound complicated, darlings, but it's not if you just use your basic knowledge that I've taught you today. The idea here is, first we need to understand how important protein is. Once you will understand how important protein is, you will figure out a way to get it into your diet.
Thanks, Pooja. I think on the point you said on calculating your daily protein requirement, a tool like a proteinometer, the one that Right to Protein launched a couple of months ago, would be really good to solve that.
Very easy. It's a beautifully made tool though. So you just have to put in what food you're looking for, and it'll give you exact amount of protein in it.
Great. So let's get on to the second question. Should a woman suffering from PCOD or PCOS have more protein in her diet? Is there a specific ingredient to consume more?
Anyone suffering from PCOS is usually having a lot of insulin resistance. Insulin resistance comes in when there's too much body fat, and too much body fat is primarily sometimes because of a bad diet in terms of too much sugar or too much fried. And yes, proteins will completely turn that ratio around. See, what happens with PCOS is, because the hormones are not right, it's difficult to lose weight. Because it's difficult to lose weight, the PCOS gets worse. So when you introduce good quality protein, adequate protein, please remember, you need adequate protein. You don't need excess protein as a solution to PCOD. You need adequate protein. Once the proteins will come in, they will boost metabolic rate. Once metabolic rate will be higher, you will start losing a little bit of weight. Once you start losing a little bit of weight, the hormones settle down. Once the hormones settle down, the PCOS settles down. So the loop starts, and every domino that has fallen will gradually be built up. So yes, someone suffering from PCOS should look into adequate protein. Please do not go surplus on the protein, but you require adequate protein to help yourself cure the problem from the root. PCOS is a problem that needs to be cured from the root, and proteins can definitely help you do that.
Great. So the next question is, protein ke kifayati options kya hai? What are some of the best economic sources of protein for vegetarians? This question is coming specifically for someone who's a vegetarian.
I think I addressed this question when I said, let's introduce a few chana, peanuts, rajgira atta, hemp's atta. All of these are very, very economically available, and they are beautiful sources of protein. Protein sources don't have to be expensive.
Yep, we agree completely. If someone is overweight, how much protein should he or she eat in this scenario?
He still needs to eat the protein as per his body weight, for sure.
Hmm.
He doesn't, again, most overweight people are not eating adequate protein. That's the reason why they're eating more of carbs and more of sugar and more of fried. So an overweight person has to become even more aware about the requirement for protein, because the minute he'll step up the protein, his metabolic rate will improve. You become overweight only when your metabolic rate drops. When I say metabolic rate, that is the rate at which your body burns calories. If the rate at which your body burns calories is only poor, automatically you store more, burn less. The minute you step up the protein, you start burning more and storing less, so you can reverse the obesity or overweight problem. So how much protein you should consume, again, you will have to check according to your current body weight and then have 1 gram per kg body weight with that. But do an intelligent mix of proteins and carbs and exercise, knock off the weight, and automatically obesity will be a problem of the past.
Okay, we move on to the next question. What foods can my family start eating that are like non-vegetarian foods but are not? For example, protein foods for mock meat options.
Yeah, you could have mock meat, which is which are available to us today. It tastes like meat, but it is made from soya and soybean products, the mock meat, and it could be an option for vegetarians to add to their meal plan.
Great. Does cooking methods affect the nutritional value? हमारे खाने को पकाने का जो तरीका है, क्या उससे उसकी nutritional value या गुणों को affect करता है?
Luckily not. Luckily not. Proteins are quite stable nutrients, and the cooking style does not break down the protein. It does break down our vitamins and minerals, but luckily it does not break down our protein. So use any methods of cooking. Even cooking and cooling and reheating does not destroy the protein. For example, you made dal in the morning and you consume the same dal in the evening, or you made dal today and consume the same dal tomorrow. Even once you have cooled down the product, then reheated the product and eaten it the next day, you are not going to affect the quality or the quantity of the protein. So that luckily protein is not destroyed by heat or by freezing it.
Great. We have another question from someone who has a kid who's very active with sports. So what are some of the best sources of protein for children participating in sports at school for active kids?
So we could definitely use nuts and seeds, because they're growing children. They require good fat with protein. So nuts and seeds would be a great source. Egg whites, if they do consume it, could be a great source. Making that protein sprouted pulse powder and using that could be a great source. Soybean and soybean products, and making burgers and patties out of soybean, or using mock meat could be one of the methods. So basically with children, all we have to do is make it pair the protein with an intelligent or a tasty carb, then automatically they'll consume the protein. So for example, if you pair the sambar with idli, or you pair the soya bean as a burger, or you pair the sprouts with how do I make it tasty, like a sprouted dhokla, you just have to make it interesting for the children and automatically they'll consume it. And of course, if you're an athlete, you know the importance of protein to your performance, so they really don't require to be tricked or fooled. They want more protein because they want to improve their potential, so they will consume it. So yes, as parents and moms, we have to just make note that they should be taking proteins intelligently through breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's all.
We also have a couple of questions that are regarding protein and its benefit for the hair. So I'll read out one of those questions. My niece is 15 years old and she suffers from alopecia. So could you suggest what kind of food would be good for her?
Your hair, of course, are dead cells, but our follicles are alive. So our follicles require good protein to stay healthy. If the protein is not good, then our follicles itself become weak, open up, and therefore our hair falls. Alopecia is a condition where we see patches of baldness, where there is thinning of hair, and the regrowth of hair is not happening. Stepping up adequate amount of protein, being very careful about her hemoglobin levels and therefore iron rich foods, being very observant about B12 levels, and therefore the strength of her follicles. All of these can help her reverse the alopecia. So I would suggest that you have her protein needs calculated well by a nutritionist. Make sure you're feeding her adequate protein, reducing stress, giving her adequate water, and of course iron and B12, so that together the alopecia is conquered. But proteins, of course, make the hair follicle. So first, look into your protein intake.
Great. We have another question. Pooja ji, आपको क्या लगता है midday meal में protein किस प्रकार शामिल करना चाहिए? So the government's midday meal program. So how do you think you can plug in protein there?
It's easiest ways to put in dal. If making it too watery is difficult to be able to serve it, just give sprouts. I think it's one of the most effective ways to give good nutrition in affordable sources, is to give sprouts, or one pack of chana singh, which becomes a nibbler for the child to have, or make sure that they can have one bowl of sprouted pulse that is consumed on a daily basis as part of the midday meal. Agar hum wo focus rakh dein that they are consuming that, we are going to be marking at least 1/3 of their protein intake, which we have accomplished in school itself. So if you can give them that sprouted bowl and you can give them one bag of chana singh, which they can eat a little later, I think we have done more than a midday meal. We have at least finished 3/4 of their protein requirement has been taken care by the midday meal. I think that can be a superb initiative. And chana and singh are not expensive sources of protein, and it can be, and kids love it. It can be flavored with different masalas and spices to add a little bit of touch so that it keeps changing and it doesn't become boring and monotonous. But otherwise, sprouts and chana singh, I think, would be the easiest way to incorporate nutrition into the midday meals.
So we have time for one last question. I think, are proteins acidic on digestion, and can they cause uric acid to increase in kids and adults?
Are they acidic? Not really, not at all, because they are usually, no food is acidic, darling. Acidic खाना होता तो आपके मुंह में ही आपका मुंह ही खराब हो जाता था या जल जाता था. खाना कभी acidic नहीं होता है. Our body's response to the digestion can make the food acidic or not. Uric acid and protein metabolism was a little skewed back in the day, where they told us that uric acid goes high because of high purine content. Purines are found in proteins, so automatically high protein foods will cause high uric acid. High protein foods will cause high purine intake, which will cause high uric acid. That was what was told to us back in the day, but today science tells us that about 2/3 of the purine that increases the uric acid in our body is not dietary but produced by our body. So worrying about the protein intake to increase uric acid is not something we should be focusing on at all. Proteins cannot increase the purine intake as much as your body's own purine metabolism can. So there are certain individuals whose purine production is higher inherently. That's why they have uric acid levels. Cutting down your protein is not going to be the solution to the problem. It's going to add to the problems, because if you don't have adequate protein, your body takes your muscle and breaks it down for protein, and that causes a greater spike in your uric acid levels. So if you really want to lower uric acid levels, do not eat protein. Protein is very crucial to eliminate. What you need to do is step up your water intake so that the byproducts of purine metabolism are washed out from the kidney and they do not accumulate in the blood as uric acid. So I want to make this very clear. Cutting down protein intake to improve uric acid is not the way to do it. Please make sure you're having adequate protein. Protein is required for so many reasons that we have discussed today. Uric acid can be controlled if you step up your water intake, you reduce your alcohol intake, and you reduce your stress levels, and your metabolism of purine becomes much lower, and automatically your uric acid levels become lower. I'm so glad someone asked this question.
Great, thanks. That was actually quite insightful. Sorry, we have one last question. I think this is quite popular. How do I change unhealthy food eating habits in my kids?
How do I change?
Yeah, how do I change the unhealthy food consumption habits in my kids?
So, according to me, today's children are extremely intelligent human beings. We don't really need to trick them or take the. So when I have very fussy children, I say take the dal and knead your roti ka atta with the dal so that you and don't use water. So automatically you're increasing the protein quality of the roti because you're kneading it with dal, and that automatically makes the protein intake better. But today's children are so intelligent. If you tell them the value and importance of protein, how proteins will make them more intelligent, how proteins will make them grow taller. I think to use that analogy for children, because every child wants to be as tall as he possibly can. So if you want to be tall, you need the protein, because if you don't have protein, yes, tall is a strong genetic trait as well. But even if you have the genetic inclination to be tall, but your protein intake is not good, you will not reach your maximum potential of height. So I think the best way to make sure that children eat more balanced and protein intake is to tell them that if they want to be as tall as Papa or as tall as Mamu, then they need to eat the proteins at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then all kids will be super motivated and charged. I think today's children are an extremely intelligent lot. If you tell them what happens when you don't eat enough protein, what happens when you eat less protein, they will know. And once they have reasoned it out, they like to do everything DIY, do it yourself. So they will automatically make sure that their protein intake is good. So I think as parents, our role is to just give them the information and educate them on the importance of protein. The rest they will manage.
Great. Thank you so much, Pooja, for answering all the questions. I think that's all the time we had.
I do have, last but not the least, a very fun contest for every student.
Yes, I was getting to that.
For every student that's attending today's seminar, is that show me in what fun way are you going to incorporate proteins, about anything creative, how you have learned the importance of protein in today's session. Okay, for example, you could make a poem on proteins, or a video, or any kind of artwork or drawing. Email all your entries by the 8th of March to write2protein@gmail.com, or you can put it up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Tag Right to Protein, and then let's see who the winner of that contest is going to be. Send in your entries soon, and look out for an email reply back from us who will tell you what the winner is. Make sure that you are just read all the rules and regulations of this. All the rules and regulations will be emailed to you once you register with your email IDs. So show me in what fun way you're going to incorporate the importance of protein that you've learned today.
Right. You can get creative with it. Poems लिख सकते हैं, drawings, paintings बना सकते हैं. I mean, we're excited to see how creative you can get. The contest will close on the 8th of March, so please try and submit your entries before then. Once again, thank you so much, Pooja, for taking the time out today to address all of our questions and make this such an insightful discussion. Thank you everyone for attending. Don't forget to ask yourselves, aaj protein mein kya hai? Have a very happy and protein-packed weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.